The ship was dying. Zephyra could feel it in her crystalline bones as she pressed, her hand against the wall of the command center. The metal was cold, too cold, and the energy flowing through the ship's systems felt weak and scattered, like blood. From a wounded animal, the power leaked from damaged circuits and broken conduits. She closed her eyes and tried to push more of her own energy into the failing systems. Her body glowed with a soft blue light as she worked. Around her, other Kethmori did the same, their crystal bodies pulsing with different colors as they fed their life force into the ship. But there were so few of them left, and they were all so tired. "How much longer can we keep this up?" asked Velinor, her second in command. His usually bright purple glow had faded to a dull violet. Dark cracks ran along his arm where he had pushed too much energy into the engines yesterday. CEPH single quotes era did not answer right away. She knew the truth, but saying it out loud would make it real. They had maybe 3 days before the ship stopped working completely. 3 days before 300 Kethmori, including 67 children, would die in the cold darkness of space. The children were the worst part. They should have been bright and full of energy, their crystal bodies changing colors as they played and learned. Instead, they huddled in the lower decks, their glow dim and weak. They had been born into slavery, raised in the dark mines and energy farms of the Velthari Empire. Many had never seen a star except through the small windows of slave ships. Zephyra walked to the main screen and looked out at the emptiness around them. They were in what the galaxy called the Outer Rim, far from the great trade routes and the shining cities of the ruling species. Out here, there were only small colonies and mining stations. And somewhere ahead, according to their damaged navigation system, was the territory claimed by a species called humans. She had heard strange things about humans. They were new to the galaxy, having only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. The other species talked about them in confused whispers. Some said humans were violent and dangerous, fighting wars among themselves over small differences. Others said they were weak and primitive, barely able to travel between stars. But there were other stories, too. Stories that made no sense to anyone who understood how the galaxy worked. "Commander," said young Keshta, barely more than a child herself, "the long-range sensors are picking up something." Zephyra turned to look at the display. 3 ships were moving toward them, still far away, but coming fast. Her heart sank. After 6 months of running, hiding, and barely surviving, someone had finally found them. "Are they Velthari?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would be bad news. Keshta stared at the readings for a long moment. "No, Commander. The energy signatures are different. These ships ... I think they might be human." A strange feeling went through Zephyra's chest. Fear, yes, but something else too. Hope, maybe, though she tried to push it down. Hope was dangerous for her people. Hope led to disappointment, and disappointment led to death. "Should we run?" asked Velinor. Zephyra looked around the command center. Every surface showed warning lights. The air recycling system was failing. The food processors had broken down 2 weeks ago. Even if they could somehow get the engines working at full power, where would they go? "We cannot run anymore," she said quietly. "Even if we could, they would catch us. Human ships are supposed to be fast." The crew was silent. They all knew what this meant. Every species in the galaxy followed the same laws when it came to Kethmori. They were property, not people. Things to be used, not beings to be helped. It did not matter that they had committed no crime, except being born the wrong species. "Commander," Keshta said, her voice very small. "They are trying to talk to us." Zephyra stared at the communication panel. In all her years of running from the authorities, no one had ever tried to talk first. They always just took what they wanted. Put them through, she said. The main screen flickered and changed. Instead of showing the emptiness of space, it now showed the inside of what looked like a human ship. A woman with dark hair and kind eyes looked back at them. She wore a uniform that was clean and neat, with symbols that meant nothing to Zephyra. "This is Admiral Sarachun of the Human Defense Fleet," the woman said. Her voice was calm and steady. "We have detected damage to your vessel. Do you require assistance?" Zephyra blinked. She looked at Velinor, then back at the screen. "You want to help us?" "That is correct," Admiral Chun said. "Our sensors show your life support systems are failing. We have medical supplies and repair equipment if you need them." "You do not understand," Zephyra said slowly. "We are Kethmori. We are fugitives. The Galactic Council has declared us stolen property. If you help us, you will be breaking the law." Admiral Chun was quiet for a moment. Then she leaned forward in her chair. "Let me be very clear about something. In human space, people are not property. If you need help, we will give it. The law you are talking about is not our law." Zephyra felt something break inside her chest. Not something bad, but something that had been holding her together for too long. Tears began to flow down her crystal face, leaving bright trails of light. "You would really help us?" she whispered. "Send us your coordinates," Admiral Chun said. "We will be there in 2 hours." The screen went dark. The command center was silent, except for the sound of failing systems and quiet crying. Zephyra looked around at her people. For the first time in months, maybe years, she saw something in their eyes that she had almost forgotten. Hope. "Commander," Velinor said, his voice shaking. "What if this is a trick? What if they are lying to us?" Zephyra touched the wall again, feeling the ship's weak heartbeat under her fingers. "Then we will die," she said. "But if they are telling the truth, She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. They all knew what it would mean if the humans were really different from the other species. It would mean that somewhere in the galaxy, there were people who saw them as more than just living batteries. People who thought they deserved to live free. 2 hours later, the human ships arrived. They were smaller than Zephyra had expected, but they moved with a grace that made her think of dancers. As she watched, one of the ships came close to theirs and extended a docking tube. "This is it," she told her people over the ship's communication system. "Whatever happens next, remember that we have made it this far together. We are not just property. We are Kethmori, and we are alive." The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Admiral Chun stepped through, followed by 2 other humans carrying medical bags and tool boxes. She looked around the damaged ship and then at the Kethmori crew. Her face showed sadness and anger, but not at them. At what had been done to them. "Welcome to human space," she said. "You are safe now." Admiral Sarachun had seen many strange things in her 20 years of space travel, but she had never seen anything like the inside of the Kethmori ship. The walls seemed to be made of some kind of living crystal that pulsed with weak light. Everywhere she looked, she saw damage. Burned circuits hung from the ceiling like dead vines. The air smelled of metal and fear. But what really made her heart ache were the people themselves. The Kethmori moved like broken glass, careful and slow, as if they expected to be hurt at any moment. Their crystal bodies were dull and cracked. Some had pieces missing entirely, leaving dark holes where bright light should have been. "How many of you are there?" she asked Zephyra as they walked through the damaged corridors. 312, Zephyra replied. 67 are children. Sarah stopped walking. "Children? Where are they?" Zephyra led her down a narrow stairway to the lower deck. Sarah had to duck her head to fit, but she followed without complaint. When they reached the bottom, she saw them. The children huddled, together in groups, their small crystal bodies barely glowing. They looked at Sarah with wide eyes full of fear. Some tried to hide behind the adults. Others just stared, too tired to be afraid anymore. They have never seen a human before, Sephareh explained quietly. They have never seen anyone who was not either a slave like them or a master who hurt them. Sarah knelt down slowly, making herself smaller and less scary. One little girl, her crystal body a very pale pink, took a tiny step forward. "Hello," Sarah said softly. "My name is Sarah. What is your name?" The little girl looked at Zephara, who nodded. "Lila," she whispered. "That is a very pretty name, Lila. Are you hungry?" Lila nodded. All the children nodded. Sarah stood up and spoke into her communication device. "Chun to medical team. We need food, clean water, and medicine down here right away. And send Doctors Kim and Rodriguez. We have children who need help." Within minutes, more humans came through the airlock. They carried bags full of supplies and moved with quick efficiency. But they were also gentle, speaking softly and smiling at the frightened Kethmori. Dr. Kim, a young woman with short black hair, knelt beside Lila and took out a small device. "This will tell me if you are sick," she explained. "It will not hurt. You? See?" She used the device on herself first, showing Lila that it was safe. While the medical team worked, Sarah and Zephara went back to the command center. Admiral Chun looked at the damage reports on her tablet and shook her head. "Your ship cannot be repaired," she said. "The hull has too many cracks. The engines are completely destroyed." "I am sorry." Zephara nodded sadly. She had known this was true, but hearing it said out loud still hurt. "Then we will die here," she said. "At least we will die free." "No," Sarah said firmly. "You will not die. We are going to take you somewhere safe." "Safe?" Zephara laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "There is no safe place for Kethmori in this galaxy. We are property. Every world, every station, every ship follows the same law. We belong to whoever can catch us." Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Have you ever heard of Haven's Rest?" Zephara shook her head. "It is a planet at the edge of human space. We built it for people who need a new home. People who have nowhere else to go. If you want, you can live there, all of you, as free people." "You would do that?" Zephara asked. "Even though it will cause you trouble?" "Yes," Sarah said without hesitation. "It will cause us trouble. The Galactic Council will be angry. Other species will say we are breaking the law, but we do not care about their laws when their laws are wrong." Zephara stared at her. "I do not understand. Why would you risk so much for strangers?" "What do you gain from this?" Sarah smiled. "We gain the knowledge that we did the right thing. That is enough." 2 days later, the Kethmori refugees were aboard human transport ships, heading toward Haven's Rest. The children had already started to recover. Their crystal bodies were brighter, and some of them had even started to play. Lila had become friends with a human girl named Emma, who was the daughter of one of the ship's officers. The two girls did not speak the same language very well yet, but they played games with colored lights that made both of them laugh. Zephara stood in the observation deck of the transport ship, watching the stars go by. She had never traveled on a ship like this before. The walls were painted with soft colors. There were windows everywhere. Plants grew in small gardens, making the air smell fresh and alive. "It is beautiful," said Velinor, who had come to stand beside her. "Yes," Zephara agreed, "but I keep waiting for it to be taken away." "The humans seem serious about helping us," Velinor said. "Dr. Kim told me that Haven's Rest has schools for the children. Real schools, where they can learn about art and science and history. not just how to work in the energy farms. Zephyra nodded, but she was still worried. The other species will not let this happen. They will demand that the humans give us back. She was right to worry. At that very moment, on the capital world of the Galactic Council, an emergency meeting was taking place. Ambassador Thexlon of the Velthari Empire stood before the council chamber, his four arms waving in anger. "This is completely unacceptable," he shouted. "The humans have stolen 300 units of valuable Kethmori property. They must return them immediately." The other ambassadors nodded in agreement. The Kethmori were not people in their eyes. They were tools. Very valuable tools that had been stolen. Ambassador Quinder of the Ascendant Collective spoke next. "We have tried to be patient with the humans because they are new to galactic civilization. But this shows that they do not understand how things work. Someone must teach them." At the back of the chamber, Ambassador Maria Santos of Earth sat quietly. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. When the others finished shouting, she stood up. "The humans understand perfectly how things work," she said. Her voice was not loud, but everyone could hear her clearly. "We simply choose to work differently." "You cannot choose to ignore galactic law," Exlon snapped. "We can and we will," Maria replied. "The beings you call property are people. They have names and families and dreams. We will not send them back to slavery." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several ambassadors began shouting at once. But Maria just stood there calmly, waiting for them to finish. When they were quiet again, she spoke once more. "The humans have made their decision. Any Kethmori who asks for our help will receive it. If you do not like this, you are welcome to try and stop us." 3 weeks later, President Marcus Rivera stood before the cameras in his office on Earth. The whole galaxy was watching as he prepared to make an announcement that would change everything. "My fellow humans," he began, "and to all beings throughout the galaxy who believe in freedom and dignity. Today, I am signing the Sanctuary Protocols. From this day forward, any sentient being who seeks refuge in human space will find it. We will not ask about their past. We will not care about their species or their place in some artificial hierarchy. We will judge them only by their actions and their character." He paused and looked directly into the camera. "To the Galactic Council, I say this. We are not your property, and neither is anyone else. If you wish to trade with us, to work with us, to be our friends, you are welcome. But if you come to our space, demanding that we return people to slavery, you will find us ready to defend those who have asked for our protection." On Haven's Rest, Zephyra watched the speech with tears of light flowing down her crystal face. Around her, 300 Kethmori listened in amazement as a human leader told the entire galaxy that they were people, not property. Little Lila tugged on Zephyra's robe. "Does this mean we can stay?" she asked in her small voice. Zephyra knelt down and hugged the little girl tightly. "Yes, little star," she whispered. "We can stay. We are home." But even as she said the words, Zephyra knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy would not accept what the humans had done. There would be consequences. There would be anger and threats, and maybe even war. But for the first time in her life, Zephyra was not afraid. She had seen what humans were capable of when they decided to do the right thing. And she knew that whatever came next, her people would not face it alone. 6 months had passed since the Kethmori arrived on Haven's Rest, and the planet had become something that no one in the galaxy had ever seen before. In the morning light, human and Kethmori children ran together through the streets of New Hope City, their laughter mixing with the sound of crystal chimes that the Kethmori had built in the town square. Dr. Elena Vasquez walked through the research center, carrying her morning coffee and watching the miracle that happened here every day. At one table, a human engineer named Tom worked with Zephyra to design a new type of power generator. At another, a group of Kethmori teenagers taught human students how to create light sculptures with their natural energy abilities. "Good morning." Dr. Vasquez called Lila, who was now 7 years old and spoke perfect English. She sat with her human friend Emma, both girls working on a science project together. Their homework was scattered across the table, mixed with pieces of crystal that glowed different colors. "Good morning, girls," Elena replied. "What are you building today?" "We are making a communication device," Emma explained excitedly. "Lila can make the crystals store messages, and I figured out how to make them play back later." Elena smiled and made a note in her tablet. This was exactly the kind of thing that was happening all over Haven's Rest. Humans and Kethmori were not just living together. They were creating new things that neither species could have made alone. But Elena's smile faded as she looked at the news report on her tablet. The headlines were getting worse every day. The Galactic Council had placed severe economic sanctions on all human worlds. Trade ships were being turned away from human ports. Worse, there were reports of alien warships gathering at the borders of human space. "Dr. Vasquez?" Sephara had appeared beside her, moving with the quiet grace that all Kethmori had. "Is everything all right?" Elena showed her the tablet. The Velthari Empire and the Ascendant Collective are working together now. They have declared human space contaminated zone and are warning all other species to stay away from us. Sephara's crystal body darkened with sadness. "This is our fault. If we had not come here, the humans would not be in trouble." "No," Elena said firmly. "This is not your fault. You did not create the system that made you slaves. You just wanted to be free." At that moment, Tom looked up from his work table. "Hey, Elena, you need to see this. Sephara just helped me solve a problem we have been working on for months." Elena walked over to the table where Tom was pointing, excitedly at a small device that glowed with soft blue light. "We were trying to figure out how to make our faster-than-light engines more efficient," Tom explained. "But every time we tried to increase the power, the engines would overheat. Sephara suggested using Kethmori energy regulation techniques. And look, he activated the device. The blue glow became brighter and more stable, but the temperature. Readings on his scanner stayed completely normal. This could change everything," Elena breathed. "If we can apply this to our ship engines, our ships could travel twice as fast as before," Sephara finished, "and use half the energy." Elena stared at the device, her mind racing. This was not just a scientific breakthrough. This was proof that the galaxy's entire way of thinking was wrong. The Galactic Council treated the Kethmori as living batteries because they thought that was all they were good for. But when they were free to use their abilities creatively, they could do things that amazed even human scientists. "We need to tell Admiral Chun about this," Elena said 2 hours later. Admiral Chun stood in the research center with President Rivera, who had come to Haven's Rest for an emergency meeting. They listened as Elena explained what Tom and Sephara had discovered. "This is incredible," President Rivera said. "But I have some bad news. Our intelligence reports say that the Velthari and the Ascendant Collective are planning to attack us within the next month. They have over 200 warships gathered at our border." Admiral Chun nodded grimly. "Our entire fleet has maybe 50 ships. Even with this new technology, we cannot fight that many enemies." "Maybe we can," said a new voice. They all turned to see Velinor entering the room. Behind him came 12 other adult Kethmori, including several that Elena had never seen before. "Commander Velinor," Sephara said with surprise. "What do you mean?" Velinor looked around the room at the humans, then at his fellow Kethmori. "We have been talking," he said, "all of us. And we have made a decision. If the humans are willing to fight for our freedom, then we are willing to fight beside them. But you are not soldiers, Admiral Chun protested. We brought you here too. Be safe not to fight in wars. An older Kethmori named Kethrin stepped forward. His crystal body was deep red, marked with scars from years of slavery. Admiral Chun, with respect, you do not understand what we can do when we work together freely. Show them, Zephyra said quietly. The 12 Kethmori formed a circle in the center of the room. They joined hands and began to glow. At first, it was just a soft light, like candles in the dark. But then the light grew brighter and more focused. The air in the room began to hum with energy dots suddenly. Every electronic device in the research center turned on at once. Computers booted up instantly. The lights became so bright they had to be dimmed. Even Elena's tablet began downloading information faster than she had ever seen. We can do this to your ships, Catherine explained as the demonstration ended. We can make them faster, stronger, and more powerful than anything the galaxy has ever seen. But more than that, we can connect with your computer systems directly. We can help your pilots react faster than thought. President Rivera stared at them. You would do this for us, even though it means going to war? Mr. President, Zephyra said, the humans gave us something we had never had before. Hope, freedom, a chance for our children to grow up as people instead of property. We cannot repay that gift, but we can help protect it. Elena felt tears in her eyes as she watched this moment. These people who had been treated as objects for thousands of years were volunteering to risk their lives for the humans who had given them sanctuary. But Admiral Chun looked worried. Even with your help, we will still be outnumbered 4-1. And if we lose, we lose fighting for what is right, President Rivera said. But I do not think we will lose. Not with allies like these. 3 weeks later, the first reports arrived that would change the galaxy forever. On the mining world of Kethter Prime, where Kethmori slaves had worked in the energy mines for generations, something impossible had happened. The slaves had risen up and taken control of the planet. Similar reports came from 12 other worlds in the next few days. Slaves were rebelling everywhere, inspired by news of the human sanctuary and the promise that freedom was possible. The Velthari Empire responded with brutal force, sending troops to crush the rebellions. But on each world, they found that the rebels had weapons and technology that should not exist. Somehow, the rebels had access to human communication systems and human-designed weapons. Ambassador Thexlon stormed into an emergency session of the Galactic Council, his forearms shaking with rage. The humans are arming slaves across the galaxy, he shouted. This is an act of war. Ambassador Santos sat calmly in her chair. We are not arming anyone, she said. We are simply teaching them that they have the right to be free. You are destroying the natural order. Quinder of the Ascendant Collective declared, some species are meant to serve others. This is how the galaxy has always worked. Then maybe, Maria Santos said quietly, it is time for the galaxy to work differently. Back on Haven's Rest, Elena stood in the observation deck of the research center, watching human and Kethmori engineers work together to upgrade the defense fleet. The ships in orbit no longer looked like ordinary human vessels. They glowed with crystal formations that made them look like living things made of metal and light. Dr. Vasquez, said a young voice behind her. Elena turned to see Lila approaching, but she was not alone. Behind her came dozens of other Kethmori children, their crystal bodies bright with determination. Lila, what are you all doing here? We want to help, Lila said simply. The adults think we are too young to fight, but we can do things they cannot. When we work together, our energy is stronger than theirs. Elena knelt down to Lila's level. Sweetheart, this is going to be very dangerous. We cannot ask children to fight in a war. You are not asking, said Emma, who had appeared beside her friend. "We are volunteering. All of us. Human kids and Kethmori kids together." Elena looked around at the faces surrounding her. Human and alien children, all of them barely old enough for school, but all of them determined to protect the world that had become their home. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked. Lila smiled, and her crystal body began to glow with a light brighter than Elena had ever seen from such a young Kethmori. "We want to show the galaxy what happens when people choose to work together, instead of fighting each other." As Elena watched, more children joined the group. Human kids holding hands with Kethmori kids, all of them glowing with shared energy and shared purpose. For the first time since the crisis began, Elena felt truly hopeful. The galaxy's empires thought they were fighting against a small human colony. They had no idea they were about to face something completely new. The alarm sirens woke everyone on Haven's Rest at dawn. Admiral Chun stood in the command center, watching the long-range scanners as hundreds of red dots appeared at the edge of the system. A joint fleet of the Velthari Empire and the Ascendant Collective had arrived, just as their spies had warned. "How many?" asked President Rivera, who had rushed to the command center still wearing his pajamas. 237 ships, Chun replied grimly, including 12 of their largest battleships. They brought everything they had. Through the windows of the command center, they could see the human defense fleet preparing for battle. 53 ships, each one now glowing with Kethmori, crystal formations that made them look like strange stars against the black of space. "Admiral," came a voice over the radio. "This is Captain Morrison on the HMS Liberty. All ships report ready for combat. The Kethmori volunteers are in position." Chun picked up her microphone. "Understood, Captain. Remember, we are not just fighting for ourselves today. We are fighting for the idea that all people deserve to be free. Copy that, Admiral. See you on the other side." In the lower levels of New Hope City, Zephyra stood with her people in the emergency shelters. But these were not ordinary shelters. The walls were lined with crystal formations that connected to every ship in the human fleet. Through these connections, the Kethmori could share their energy and abilities with the human pilots and gunners. "Are you ready?" she asked Velinor, who stood beside a control panel covered in glowing crystals. "As ready as we can be," he replied. "The children are in the deepest shelters, connected to the main power grid. If we need extra energy, they can provide it." Jafara nodded, but she was worried about the children. Lila and the others had insisted on helping, and their combined energy was indeed incredibly powerful. But they were so young, and this battle would be like nothing anyone had ever seen before. High above the planet, the alien fleet moved into attack formation. The lead ship was massive, longer than a city block, and bristling with weapons. From its bridge, Admiral Kexthul of the Velthari Empire looked down at the small human world with contempt. "Open a channel to the planet," he ordered. Moments later, his image appeared on screens throughout Haven's Rest. He was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that looked like gray metal. His voice was cold and harsh when he spoke. "Humans of Haven's Rest," he announced, "you are holding stolen property that belongs to the Velthari Empire. You have exactly 1 hour to return all Kethmori to our custody. If you refuse, we will take them by force and destroy your colony as an example to other primitive species who think they can defy galactic law." In the command center, Admiral Chun stepped in front of the camera. "Admiral Kexthul," she said calmly, "the people you call property are free beings under the protection of humanity. If you want them, you will have to go through us first." Kexthul's face twisted with anger. "So be it. You have chosen to die for slaves. How very human of you." The channel closed. For a moment, The space around Haven's Rest was perfectly quiet. Then the alien fleet opened fire. The first barrage of energy beams and missiles lit up the darkness like a deadly fireworks show. The human ships scattered, moving faster than Kexthul had expected. Their crystal-enhanced engines allowed them to dance between the incoming fire like leaves in a storm. "All ships, this is Chun," the Admiral broadcast. "Remember your training. Use your speed and let the Kethmori guide your movements. Trust your partners." On the HMS Liberty, Captain Morrison felt a strange sensation as the Kethmori energy flowed through his ship's systems. It was like having a second mind connected to his own, one that could see and react faster than any human could alone. "Incoming missiles," portside, his Kethmori partner, Kethren, said directly into his thoughts. Morrison turned the ship without even looking at his screens. The missiles passed harmlessly by, and his gunners returned fire with energy beams that glowed with crystal light. When they hit an alien ship, the beams did not just damage the hull. They somehow disrupted the ship's entire power system, leaving it floating helpless in space. What in the void was that? Kexthul demanded as he watched 3 of his ships go dark from single hits. "The humans have modified their weapons," his science officer reported. "The Kethmori are channeling energy through their systems in ways we have never seen before." But even with their new advantages, the human fleet was badly outnumbered. 4. Every alien ship they disabled, 2 more took its place. Slowly, the defense line began to fall back toward the planet Dot in the shelters. Zefara felt the strain on her people. They were pouring all their energy into the human ships, pushing themselves to their limits and beyond. Several of the older Kethmori had already collapsed from exhaustion. "We cannot keep this up much longer," Belaner said, his crystal body flickering with weak light. That was when Lila's voice came over the communication system. "Commander Zefara? We are ready to help now." "No, little star," Zefara replied. "It is too dangerous. You are just children." "But we are Kethmori children," Lila said firmly. "And we are not afraid." Before Zefara could stop them, she felt it. A wave of pure, bright energy flowing up from the deepest shelters. The children, 67 young Kethmori who had never known freedom until they came to Haven's Rest, were joining their power together, but they were not alone. Human children were with them, holding their hands and somehow sharing in the energy flow. Emma's voice joined Lila's on the radio. "This is our home too," Emma said. "We are all in this together." The effect was immediate. Every human ship suddenly blazed with light brighter than stars. They moved faster than should have been possible, turning and spinning through space like dancers in a cosmic ballet. Their weapons fired beams of energy that seemed to bend and curve, seeking out alien ships no matter how they tried to hide. Impossible. Kexthul breathed as he watched his massive fleet being pushed back by a handful of small human ships. How can they be so powerful? On the HMS Liberty, Captain Morrison felt tears in his eyes as the children's energy flowed through his ship. This was not just power he was feeling. It was hope and love and the absolute determination to protect home and family. "Target their flagship," Catherine suggested. Morrison nodded and turned his ship toward the massive Valthari command vessel. Around him, the rest of the human fleet did the same, moving together like a flock of bright birds. Kexthul saw them coming and ordered all his remaining ships to protect his flagship. But the human ships seemed to phase in and out of reality, appearing in one place and then instantly somewhere else. Their weapons passed through his shields as if they were not even there. The first hit shook the massive ship like a toy. The second hit took out the main engines. The third hit left the command bridge in darkness. "Admiral," his communications officer shouted. "The other fleets are requesting orders." Half our ships are disabled. Kexthul stared at the tactical display in disbelief. In less than 2 hours, a tiny human colony had destroyed or disabled more than half of the most powerful fleet the galaxy had ever assembled. "Sir?" the officer asked again. Kexthul was quiet for a long moment. Then he said the words that would echo across the galaxy for generations. "All ships, retreat. We cannot win this battle." As the alien fleet limped away from Haven's Rest, the human ships hung in space like glowing guardians. In the shelters below, children, both human and Kethmori, hugged each other and cried with relief. But Admiral Chun knew this was not over. The galaxy had just watched the impossible happen. A small human colony had defeated the combined might of 2 great empires. The news would spread to every world, every station, every ship in known space. And on those worlds where slaves still suffered under the old laws, they would hear this news and remember that freedom was possible. "All ships, return to base," Chun ordered. "We have work to do. This war is just beginning." In the command center, President Rivera put his hand on Chun's shoulder. "You realize what we have just done?" he asked. Chun nodded, looking out at the stars where the alien fleet was disappearing into the distance. "We have shown the galaxy that the old ways are ending, whether they like it or not." On the deepest level of the shelters, Lila sat with Emma and the other children. They were tired but happy, their faces glowing with the satisfaction of having helped save their home. "Do you think they will come back?" Emma asked. Lila smiled and squeezed her friend's hand. "Maybe. But if they do, we will be ready. All love. U.S. together." Above them, the stars shone down on a world where 2 species had learned that when people work together with love and trust, they can accomplish anything, even defeating an empire. The news of the Battle of Haven's Rest spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On mining worlds and factory stations, in slave quarters and servant compounds, beings who had lived their entire lives in chains heard something they had never heard before. A great empire had been defeated by people fighting for freedom. 3 months after the battle, President Rivera stood in the new assembly hall on Haven's Rest, looking out at representatives from 47 different species. They had come from every corner of the galaxy, many traveling in secret, all carrying the same message. Their people wanted to be free. "The revolution has begun," Admiral Chun said quietly, joining him at the window. "Look at them all." Rivera nodded. In the assembly hall below, former slaves sat next to rebel leaders and escaped prisoners. There were species he had never seen before, beings with fur and scales and crystal skin, all united by their desire for freedom and dignity. At the front of the hall, Sephara was speaking to the assembled representatives. Her crystal body glowed with confidence as she explained the sanctuary protocols that humanity had created. "Any being who seeks freedom will find it in the Liberation Coalition," she said. "We do not care what species you are or what your masters called you. Here you are people. Here you have worth." In the back of the hall, a tall being covered in blue feathers raised her hand. "What about protection?" she asked. "The Velthari have threatened to destroy any world that helps escape slaves. How can you protect all of us?" Admiral Chun stepped forward to answer. "We cannot protect everyone at once," she admitted. "But we are not trying to build an empire like the old ones. We are building something new. A network of free worlds that help and support each other." She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Dozens of star systems were marked with green lights. These are worlds that have joined the coalition in the last 3 months. Some are human colonies. Others are rebel planets that threw off their oppressors. Each one is a safe harbor for anyone seeking freedom. An alien that looked like a walking tree spoke next. The Galactic Council says you are criminals and terrorists. They have placed a bounty on every human leader and declared war on all rebel worlds. President Rivara smiled. Let them. The Galactic Council represents only the ruling species. They speak for empires and corporations, not for the billions of beings who actually live in this galaxy. We speak for everyone else. As the assembly continued, a small group slipped away to watch from the observation deck above. Lila, now 8 years old, sat with Emma and a dozen other children from different species. They had become the symbol of the coalition, children of former enemies, playing together, learning together, growing up free. Look, Emma whispered, pointing out the window. More ships are arriving. A new fleet was approaching Haven's Rest, but these were not warships. They were transport vessels, cargo haulers, and civilian ships of every size and design. Each one carried refugees, rebels, or supplies for the growing coalition. My father says 3 more worlds declared independence this week, said Kixara, a young Velfari girl whose parents had fled the Empire after refusing to enslave other species. The Emperor is so angry he broke 4 of his ceremonial thrones. The children laughed. It was strange to think that these powerful beings who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years could be defeated by simple ideas like friendship and fairness. But not everyone in the galaxy was laughing. In the capital city of the Velfari Empire, Emperor Thexkor paced back and forth in his throne room, his forearms gesturing wildly as he shouted at his advisors. 43 worlds, he roared. 43 worlds have rebelled in the last month alone. How is this possible? General Kexmil, the Emperor's top military commander, looked tired and defeated. The rebels are using human technology and tactics. Your Majesty, every time we attack one of their worlds, 3 more declare independence. And the humans, they seem to be everywhere at once. They are just one small species. The Emperor shouted, How can they cause so much trouble? Because they are not fighting alone, Admiral Kexthul said from his place at the back of the room. He had been demoted after his defeat at Haven's Rest, but his words still carried weight. Every species we have enslaved, every world we have conquered, they all see the humans as hope. They see proof that the mighty can be defeated. The Emperor turned to glare at his former admiral. And what do you suggest we do about it? Kexthul was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that shocked everyone in the room. Maybe we should consider making peace with them. The throne room erupted in angry voices. Several generals called Kexthul a traitor. Others demanded he be arrested. But the Emperor held up one of his hands for silence. Explain, he said coldly. Kexthul stepped forward. Your Majesty, we are losing this war. Not because the humans have better weapons or more ships, but because they have something we do not. They have the support of most of the galaxy's population. Every slave, every oppressed world, every species that has suffered under our rule, they all want the humans to win. So you suggest we surrender to primitives? General Kexmil snarled. I suggest we stop thinking of them as primitives, Kexthul replied. They defeated our greatest fleet with 50 ships. They have inspired revolutions on hundreds of worlds. Maybe it is time to admit that they know something we do not. While the old empires argued among themselves, the new galaxy was taking shape. On Haven's Rest, Dr. Elena Vasquez worked with scientists from 20 different species to develop new technologies that could help terraform dead worlds and create clean energy for everyone. The breakthrough came when a young Kethmori engineer named Nethron discovered how to combine human manufacturing techniques with Kethmori energy manipulation. The result was a device that could turn barren rock into fertile soil in a matter of days. This changes everything, Elena said as she watched the demonstration. A patch of dead ground was transformed into a garden right before her eyes. We can give every refugee world everything it needs to become self-sufficient. But the greatest change was not technological. It was social. For the first time in galactic history, beings from different species were working together as equals. The idea that some races were naturally superior to others was being proven wrong every day. In the new schools on coalition worlds, human children learned alongside Kethmori, Velthari refugees, and dozens of other species. They studied art and science together, played games together, and grew up believing that diversity made them stronger, not weaker. 2 years after the Battle of Haven's Rest, the Galactic Council called for an emergency session. But when the representatives arrived, they found something they had never expected. The chamber was full of new ambassadors, beings from rebel worlds and liberated colonies, all demanding seats at the table. Ambassador Maria Santos, now representing the entire Liberation Coalition, stood to address the assembly. The old ambassadors from the traditional empires looked at her with fear and hatred, but she spoke calmly and clearly. "The galaxy has changed," she said. "The old system of empires ruling over slaves is ending. In its place, we offer something better. A community of free worlds, working together for the benefit of all. You are destroyers," shouted Ambassador. "Vexlon, you have brought chaos to our ordered civilization." "We have brought freedom to your slaves," Maria replied. "And we offer the same freedom to anyone who wants it, including your own people." As if to prove her point, several Velthari ambassadors stood up and walked across the chamber to join the coalition delegation. They had grown tired of serving an empire built on the suffering of others. By the end of the day, the old Galactic Council had dissolved. In its place, representatives began planning for a new kind of government, one based on equality and cooperation rather than conquest and domination. 6 months later, Zefara stood on a hill overlooking New Hope City, watching the sunset paint. The sky in brilliant colors. The city had grown enormously, with buildings and gardens that mixed architectural styles from dozens of different worlds. "Beautiful, is it not?" said President Rivera, joining her on the hill. "I never imagined anything like this was possible," Zefara replied. "When we first came here, we just wanted to survive. Now look what we have built together." Below them, the city was alive with activity. Human and alien families walked together. Through the parks, children of a dozen species played in the streets. Ships from across the galaxy landed at the spaceport, bringing new refugees who had heard that freedom was possible. "The stars rejected us," Zefara said, remembering the old pain. "For so long, they told us we were worthless, that we deserved to be slaves. And now?" Rivera asked. Zefara smiled, her crystal body glowing with warm light. "Now the stars are full of free worlds. Worlds where children can grow up believing they have worth simply because they are alive. The stars did not reject us after all. They were just waiting for us to reject the lies we had been told about ourselves." As night fell over Haven's Rest, the sky filled with the lights of ships from 100 different worlds. Each one carried the message that had started it all, that every being deserved dignity, that freedom was possible, and that when people worked together with love and respect, they could change the universe itself.